The term Dark Ages can feel a little dramatic, can it? It conjures images of endless night, of a world that simply switched off. But what it really describes is a period of immense, often chaotic transformation in Europe. It's the time after the mighty Roman Empire, a superpower that had held much of the continent together for centuries, finally crumbled in the West around the 5th century AD. Imagine a world where the central government collapses, where the roads are no longer safe, and where the grand stone cities begin to fall into disrepair. This was the new reality. It wasn't that the sun stopped shining, but that the light of Roman order and centralized learning had dimmed considerably, leaving a complex patchwork of successor kingdoms in its place. This period, stretching roughly from the 5th to the 10th century, is called Dark, primarily because our historical sources become scarcer. The Romans were meticulous record keepers, but with the breakdown of their administration, far fewer written accounts were produced. It's a darkness of information, a historical fog that makes it harder for us to see the day-to-day lives of the people who lived then. Yet, this wasn't an age of nothingness, it was a crucible, a time of forging. New peoples like the Franks, the Goths, the Anglo-Saxons were on the move, establishing new identities and new ways of life across the landscape of the old empire. Amidst this fragmentation and upheaval, one institution not only survived the fall of Rome but grew stronger in its wake. That institution was the Christian Church. In an age of instability, where do you go for sanctuary? For many, the answer was the monastery. These were communities set apart from the world, places of prayer, work, and profound quiet. From the wind-swept islands of Ireland, Scotland, to the sun-baked hills of Italy, monasteries established scriptoria. These were writing rooms, quiet chambers where monks would spend countless hours meticulously copying texts by hand. They didn't just copy the Bible and the writings of the Church Fathers. Crucially, they also copied the works of the great thinkers of pagan Greece and Rome, the philosophy of Plato, the poetry of Virgil, the scientific observations of Pliny. Without their painstaking labor, much of this classical knowledge would have been lost to us forever. Imagine a single monk hunched over a desk by candlelight, carefully forming each letter onto a sheet of prepared animal skin. This was not a quick process. Creating one book could take a year or more. The monks did not just copy the words, they illuminated them. They decorated the manuscripts with intricate designs, swirling patterns, and miniature paintings using gold leaf and vibrant pigments. The Book of Kells, an astonishing gospel book created by Irish monks around 800 AD, is a breathtaking testament to their artistry and devotion. These books were not just containers of information, they were sacred objects, works of art that celebrated the divine word. The Christian faith didn't just survive in isolated monasteries, it actively spread, transforming Europe from a pagan continent into Christendom. This expansion happened in two key ways, from the top down, from the ground up. The top-down conversion was often a matter of royal politics. When a powerful king converted, his people usually followed. When a chieftain converted, the tribe often did the same. A pivotal moment was the baptism of Clovis, the king of the Franks, around the year 496. By embracing the Catholic faith of his Gallo-Roman subjects, he secured a powerful alliance with the Church and unified his kingdom under a single religious banner, laying the foundations for what would become France. In Anglo-Saxon England, missionaries sent from Rome, like Augustine of Canterbury in 597, focused on converting the kings of the various small kingdoms. Once a ruler like King Ethelbert of Kent accepted baptism, the new faith gained official protection and prestige. Churches could be built, and priests could preach openly. This strategy recognized the hierarchical nature of society. Winning over the leader was the most effective way to win over the tribe. The cross and the crown became deeply intertwined, with kings claiming to rule by divine right and the Church, in turn, lending its immense spiritual authority to their reigns. Alongside these royal conversions were the tireless efforts of missionaries who worked from the ground up. Figures like St. Patrick in Ireland and St. Boniface faced immense dangers, confronting pagan priests on their own turf. In the world of the Dark Ages, Christianity was not something you did for an hour on a Sunday, it was the very air you breathed. The faith shaped every aspect of daily life from birth to death. The tolling of the church bell marked the hours of the day, calling people to prayer and regulating the rhythm of work in the fields. The calendar was organized around a cycle of Christian feasts and fasts: Christmas, Easter, Lent, Saints' Days. These weren't just holidays, they connected the entire community, reenacted the sacred story of their faith, providing meaning and structure to the passing of the seasons. The influence of the church was also deeply embedded in the law. As Germanic tribal laws began to merge with the remnants of Roman law, Christian morality became a guiding principle. Art and architecture became powerful tools for teaching the faith to a population that could not read. The walls of churches were covered in frescoes depicting scenes from the Bible, the creation, the life of Christ, the Last Judgment. These were the graphic novels of the Middle Ages. The very layout of a cathedral was a lesson in theology, built in the shape of a cross. The period we call the Dark Ages was not an end, but a long, transformative beginning. By the time the fog began to lift around the 11th century, a new Europe had been forged, and its defining characteristic was its Christian faith. Christianity had acted as a bridge, carrying the cultural DNA of the Roman and classical world, across the chasm of chaos and delivering it to the medieval era. The monasteries that had so carefully preserved ancient texts became the seeds of Europe's first universities in places like Bologna, Paris, Oxford. So when we look at Europe today, its laws, its universities, its cultural heritage, and even its sense of self, we are seeing the long legacy of the Dark Ages. It was a time of immense challenge, but it was also a time when the foundations of the modern West were laid.